And welcome to another episode of Football the Pod. I'm your host, Commissioner Ben. And welcome to Football the Pod, Season 4, Episode 6. We are recording on Tuesday, September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, of course, which means I wasn't working, and so I can record the podcast during the day. And, well, last week started off slow, but then the league action picked up with two big-time Saturday night trades. Finally, we got some trade action, and, of course, some butt-clenching football through Sunday and Monday night. No players dropped 40 bombs this week, but we hit a bunch of 30-plus scores and our highest points total of the year this week. But we'll get into all that, of course, because first it's time for Just a Tip with Commissioner Ben. All right, well, today's tip: admit your mistakes and fix them. You know, sometimes you draft a player who ends up completely busting, or you bid for a player on the waivers who ends up being a complete one-week wonder. It happens. That's okay. That's fantasy. Don't hold on to them or overvalue them in trades or even in your starting lineup. Move them to your bench if you have to. We all make mistakes. We all make poor lineup decisions. We'll get to some of those this week, don't you worry, but we have to adjust and make the best of it. And now it's my turn. I'll admit a mistake from last week. I went for some advanced stats, and I blundered my numbers. Indeed, targets per team pass attempt, and targets per route run are all great stats to pay attention to. But if you think about it, a team passes the ball like 30 to 40 times a game on average, and a player can only run as many routes as pass attempts. So in the stat where I said targets per route run, an elite player is over 3%, I was referring to not completely different, but a different stat. Because if you think about it, well, if you have 40 pass attempts, a player can't run more routes than there have been pass attempts. And if you're getting 10 targets, that number is going to be more like 25%. So in reality, hitting 30% or more in targets per route run is elite, not the 3%, like I said. And, let's throw in some extra info just to clear things up a bit. Why did I say those two stats? Target per routes run differs from targets per team pass attempt, in that it takes into account how often a player is on the field. They only play 2/3 of the snaps, for example, because they play on mostly 3 wide receiver sets, let's say, but they're targeted a ton when they're out there, then it shows that they are earning those targets, not just running wind sprints down the sidelines the whole time. Well, the sidelines of the field, I should say. And maybe if you see that, if you got a high targets per route run compared to lower targets per team pass attempt, then maybe that means that player is going to see their playing time increase. So it's a great predictive stat when comparing the two. For the 2 to 3% stat that I was referring to last week but messed up, well, I'll save that one for next week's advanced stat. And that was Just a Tip with Commissioner Ben. All right, now time for the fantasy wrap, the week 4 review. And I do have to announce it's just me today. No guest, some solo recording. Couldn't find anybody last minute. Thought we had something lined up, but we'll save that for next week. So I'm going to put out the call right away for next week's guest. Let's try and line that up a week in, like 3-4 days in advance of the recording. Everyone's got to step up and get on the pod, I hope. So there's your heads up. I'm calling everybody out this time. So let's get into the week 4 review. And that week 4 review includes some big time action that we had on Saturday night leading up to the games. Our first 2 trades of the season. A big one and, all right, let's say a medium-sized one. Starting off, Mike, involved in both of them after having his QB and tight end completely decimated, having disappointing spots in wide receiver and running back, and sitting at 0-3. He knew he had to make some moves. He was firing off the trades. He sent me a trade offer. I tried to counter it, and I couldn't even because he had too many trades lined up in his trade queue. So I had to reject before I returned the counter. But anyways, here was a trade that went down, the first one on Saturday night. Mike receives from me Cortland Sutton, the Denver starting wide receiver, Michael Pittman, the Indianapolis number 1 wide receiver as well, and Travion Henderson, the rookie running back on New England, for Drake London, the top wide receiver at Atlanta, Chase Brown, the top running back on Cincinnati, and Blake Corum, backup running back on LA. Crazy trade here. I can't weigh in on who win or loses this one because I was involved in it. I think this was completely fair. Cortland Sutton and Michael Pittman right now on the season, wide receiver 12 and 13 overall. Compared to Drake London, even after his huge game, I was buying him low. He had 3 bad weeks to start. He blew up last week, that's for sure. But he's still only the wide receiver 21 on the season. Both Cortland Sutton and Michael Pittman had touchdowns this week, had great weeks. Chase Brown, running back 32 on the year, shit the bed once again. I'm really hoping that Cincinnati can somehow pick it up. But yeah, that could just be a bust all year. But, Travion Henderson is not so far off. He's the running back 31 on the year. So those are, I'd say, basically equivalent players. And then throw in Blake Corum as just a bench or stash in case Kyron Williams gets injured. I'm going to call this one, this is definitely, let's say, a win for both of us. Mike needed the starting wide receiver spots, and he got 2 great starting wide receivers. Well, I had great wide receiver depth, and I was trying to make an upgrade at wide receiver, and I don't even know, just threw in the running back swap for fun there, just to make it even bigger to get the league excitement going. So I'll call this a win-win on both sides. Definitely this trade. And the next one led to Mike's victory this week, but get into that in a moment. Because 5 minutes later, after this trade went down, Mike completed another trade, this time receiving Romeo Doubs, the de facto starting wide receiver on Green Bay, alongside Alvin Kamara, the aging running back, still starting running back in New Orleans, in exchange with Brent, who received Kayshon Boutte, the wide receiver 2, 3, something 4 on New England, but great name. Kayshon Boutte, come on. And Travis Etienne, the starting running back on Jacksonville, who's had a fantastic start to the year. And, this one, really sealed the deal for Mike as Romeo Doubs went out and scored 3 touchdowns on Monday Night Football to be one of the top wide receivers on the week. So that was game changing. And, Brent, we'll get into Brent's side of things here. I will have to say straight up, Travis Etienne, I would much rather have him than Alvin Kamara. And Romeo Doubs, I would much rather have him than Kayshon Boutte. Pretty even trade overall, let's say. Kayshon Boutte's basically a throw-in, unless you're Brent, who really wanted the name. I would basically call this almost Romeo Doubs plus Alvin Kamara for Travis Etienne. And even at that, I think that's a fair deal. I think Etienne is an upgrade on Kamara. Etienne sits at the running back 10 overall so far in the year. Kayshon Boutte is the wide receiver 53. Alvin Kamara, however, running back 25, and Romeo Doubs, even after his massive week, is the wide receiver 20. Those are the numbers. I will call this one a nice fair trade as well. No clear winner or loser. Let's see more of those. Great to have the league action. And now, let's get into our speed review, because it's just me. I'm going to keep this video under 20 minutes this week. Nice, easy listening for you all on, tonight or tomorrow on your ride to work. So let's get into it. The week in review. Of course, we start off with the low score, the winner of the Poopy Football Award. And this week, we once again had two teams in a race to the bottom. And I will say, Sarah thought she was on her way to back-to-back Poopy Footballs until Troy Franklin outscored T. Higgins, pushing Sarah past Christine, giving Christine the fabled first-to-last weekly turnaround in this week's Poopy Football Award with 84 points. Congratulations, Christine, from first to last. And on to the high score. The champion of the week, and this one was not even close, with our weekly champ Gainwelling the competition out of the water with a massive score of 191 points. Congratulations to Brandon. Man, it's only week 4, and this is already his second weekly champ trophy. It's looking like we've got an early league front runner. Well done, Brandon. 2 victories already. Let's move on to our matchup breakdown, and once again, with the addition of video, I can share my screen, follow along live with the matchups. However, I will make sure, you're still hearing everything that we're looking at in case you're just watching an audio. Starting off with the first matchup of the week, which also happened to be my matchup, which also happened to be the blowout of the week, myself against Christine. And I had a good score, but I was not close to being a top scorer. Really, this is thanks to, Christine's Poopy Football Award, as we've already seen. And you know what? All I'll hammer out the consistency on my side with my worst player being my number 1 overall draft pick, Jamar Chase. Dalton Kincaid still had a touchdown, even though he also only had 1 catch, almost hitting 10 points. Everybody else getting over 10 points. That's the kind of consistency that I like to see, even if Justin Herbert's now fallen down, only 15 points here. Hopefully he can step it up. I wanted more touchdowns from him. But these wide receivers, I mean, Drake London, newly acquired for 25 points, the wide receiver 5 on the week, as well as Quentin Johnson, wide receiver 6, with 23.8 points, leading me to victory. Finally, I get a good score from my Houston defense. However, on Christine's side, I mean, okay, I no need to really talk about myself. Christine did not have a single player over 17.5 points. At least her first-round pick, Saquon Barkley, her namesake, is playing well, getting well. No bomb weeks for him yet, but at least consistent points. But after that, I mean, Christine's roster just fell completely flat. I mean, I don't even think nobody else on her bench that she would have wanted to get in there. However, don't go picking up Woody Marks on the waiver wire because he's already on my team. All right, moving on to our next matchup. We have the Kittle Titty Committee, which is, of course, Mike, going against Sean. And look at these trades that Mike made. Mike traded for Michael Pittman, Travion Henderson, Cortland Sutton, and Romeo Doubs this week. Oh, and Alvin Kamara, I should say. All in his starting lineup. Alvin Kamara did not get a touchdown, but, he still had a reasonable 11 points. Everybody else he traded for had at least 1 touchdown. Michael Pittman, touchdown, 15 points. Travion Henderson didn't get too much usage, but still got a touchdown for over 12 points. Cortland Sutton, another touchdown, 81 receiving yards, 19 points. And Romeo Doubs, 3 touchdowns. If Mike had not made these trades, he is losing for sure in a close matchup, 153 to 141 to Sean. Those trades led him to victory, as well as the much better quarterback waiver wire pickup and play this week compared to last week's Michael Penix Jr. Matt Stafford, obviously much better play with 33 points, the quarterback 3 on the week. Romeo Doubs, also the wide receiver 3 on the week. Over there on Sean's side, George Pickens, massive game after CeeDee Lamb is now out. That crazy 40-40 game. 33 points for George Pickens, the wide receiver 2 on the week. But, well, you can see the rest of Sean's roster after his top players, Bijan Robinson, is still doing great, lacking at the flex positions. So Sean needs to get a little bit more out of Devonta Smith and Ramondre Stevenson, both 5 points each. Let's move on to our third matchup of the week, where we had Brent playing with his newly acquired squad going against Scott. And while this one was a fun one, first of all, let's look at Jordan Love. Fantastic game. Jordan Love, Green Bay, pulling through in some matters of things. Quarterback 4 on the week with 32 points for Jordan Love. However, let's look at the Green Bay defense. Negative 3 points from the Green Bay defense. So Green Bay, they give and receive. And for some reason, I thought Brent was going about acquiring all of the Green Bay Packers this year. Instead, he trades away Romeo Doubs, the one receiver that you actually wanted on Green Bay. I mean, all right, Matthew Golden, 11 points, totally fine. Brent's roster, Jordan Love, and then a bunch of trash. Nico Collins not living up to his first-round pick. A.J. Brown's another 2 points. He seems to be frustrated. Nothing from David Montgomery this week, 1 point. I mean, fell completely flat. Over here on Scott's side, well, not really much to say of anything. I mean, Scott somehow manages a win with not a single player getting over 17 points. Sam Darnold as his quarterback. Scott this week lost Malik Neighbors for the rest of the season. Also lost Tyreek Hill for the rest of the season. So Scott is going to be needing some wide receiver help. Probably look at his bench. He's got no wide receivers coming in there. A bunch of quarterbacks, really. I don't know what's going on there. So send those wide receiver trade offers to Scott. And, for some reason, Brent goes out, acquires Travis Etienne, a top 12 running back this year, and proceeds to sit him and his 19 points on the bench. For some reason, playing, I don't know, Nick Chubb, I guess that's his namesake. Had to get Kayshon Boutte in there, obviously. Swap in either of those guys, and that's an easy win for Brent. But hey, Brent likes to play it the hard way. Let's move on to our fourth matchup, where, if I can find it, we've got Daniel against Nick's squad, and this is a very similar point differential. Much higher scoring, though, with Daniel taking it down 154 to 141. Let's walk through this one. This one is a tale of redemption, of not trading the, once thought to be amazing second round value in Ashton Gianti, the rookie running back on Las Vegas. 3 mediocre weeks before dropping an absolute bomb. The running back 1 on the week. 2 receiving touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 3 touchdowns in total, 33 fantasy points, completely cleaning up and leading his roster to victory. Add that on to the sun god, Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 4 on the week with 26 points, and Jalen Hurts solid as always. And those big scores are all that you need to wash out Nick, who had some solid plays overall. Deebo Samuel, Devontae Adams, Javonte Williams, some of his later round and values that he got this year, all over 15 points. Quinshon Judkins is going to be a great late round steal in fantasy, at least. But it was not enough. And not much helps coming to the bench, although, might have to, not starting Xavier, worthy, weird decision, to say the least. And Daniel's going to have the number 1 wide receiver now, Wan'Dale Robinson, on the Giants after Malik Neighbors is now hurt. All right, moving on. Let's go to our 5th matchup where we've got those fear boners. That would be Jason against, Brandon, our champion of the week. So we already know how this one went down. Jason had a pretty solid week. Nothing too shabby, but 142 points, but that pales in comparison for this 50-point loss. 191 to 142. And all right, Jason is now getting some totally solid quarterback play out of Kyler Murray. Justin Jefferson finally had a breakout game. No touchdowns yet, but still 22 points. James Cook has been just the value of the entire draft. Another touchdown from him. Just, solid all around. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. is coming back. Weak showing from Jordan Mason, but still gets 9 points. However, look at Brandon's side. I mean, this game, living in Vancouver, the West Coast, sucks. 6:30 in the morning games if they are in Europe. This game in London, I think it was London, somewhere in England, between Pittsburgh and Minnesota, woke up to see the notification that for some reason Jaylen Warren was out randomly. He was sick. And so Brandon made the play. So, of course, he's paying attention. Being a Pittsburgh fan, picks up Kenneth Gainwell, their sort of 4-year, 5-year NFL journeyman running back, jumps into the starting role and just goes off for literally the best game of his career. 2 rushing touchdowns, 31 fantasy points, the running back 3 on the week. Add that on to who has been the best overall draft pick in fantasy this year, Puka Nacua, 36 points, the wide receiver 1 on the week, 13 receptions, finally got his touchdown, 170 receiving yards, absolutely insane week. And those massive blow-up games alongside the incredible consistency of Josh Allen, another 28 points. And Brandon's roster is just looking fantastic from head to toe. Okay, other than, I don't know what you're doing, starting Calvin Austin over and over, but hey, he can give you some boom weeks too. Brandon is looking real strong out there, easily crushes Jason. Let's move on to the second last matchup. And this one, if you're watching online, you can see clearly the tight butthole matchup of the week, with Eddie beating Cassie 131.02 to 130.10. That is less than a point victory. This one was a real funny one. Let's start off with Cassie. Cassie finally getting a great fantasy game from her boy, Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback 2 on the week, 35 points. And a great game from DK Metcalf, just a classic go-to Cassie handsome boy player. And then the rest of the lineup was just, 10 points. When your next best player is your kicker with 11 points, then, you probably got some problems. Even though 130 points, nothing to scoff at. Those 2 blow-up weeks. The rest of Cassie's top players, Brian Thomas Jr. and Derrick Henry, surprisingly continue to disappoint. Cassie now the only 0-4 team in our league. Maybe time to make a trade, or maybe, make a waiver move, do something. No need to give up on the season yet. Look at what Mike just did to already start turning his season around. Looking over at Eddie's side, Drake May turning into a great fantasy player this year, 27 points. Omarion Hampton, rookie running back, another 27 points alongside Christian McCaffrey. I don't think there's another team who's got a better 2 running back duo. But this one all came down to the Monday Night Football game. Dallas against Green Bay. Eddie needed just 3 points from Dontavian Wicks. Decides to start Dontavian Wicks to get him those 3 points to beat Cassie. He could have gone with Ollie Gordon. Well, Ollie Gordon wouldn't have done it. He had no other options to go with. So, I mean, look at this bench. Zeros all across Eddie's board on the bench. Needed 3 points. Dontavian Wicks had not a single point all through the game until overtime. We get to overtime. We are tied 37-37. The game goes into overtime. And then finally, Dontavian Wicks sees some targets, catches 2 balls for 19 yards, and gives Eddie the win. If not for that overtime, Cassie would no longer have or beat the only undefeated or the only winless team in the league, I should say. What's a wild finish. Definitely worthy of the tight butthole matchup of the week, which moves us into our final matchup. And this one was very close to being the blowout of the week. Very similar score to my matchup, with just a little bit less for Aaron and a little bit more for Sarah, as Aaron, easily took down Sarah, 146-86. And, I mean, not too much to say here. All around solid scoring from Aaron, capped off with a massive game from Josh Jacobs on Monday Night Football, finishing as the RB2 on the week with 31 points. If he's going to be out there catching passes, then, I mean, his upside is just, uncapped. But still a lot of disappointments on Aaron's roster, including -2 points from his kicker for 2 missed field goals. Love what a great new addition to the league. And Aaron's now going to need some help at quarterback with Lamar Jackson probably out this week, and no quarterbacks on the bench there. So yeah, Aaron's going to be somebody who needs to find that quarterback on the waiver wire. And so does Sarah. She does not want to be relying on Geno Smith, who after a massive game last week came way back down to earth, leading the league in interceptions, another 3 last week. Somehow they could not get that passing offense going against Chicago. It turned into an Ashton Jeanty game. He got all the touchdowns, which meant nothing for Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers. Sarah's risky double stack of the Vegas Raiders did not pay off, unfortunately. And really, I mean, when your high scoring player is Zay Flowers with 14 points, it's going to be pretty tough to win. I mean, some promise on Sarah's roster for sure. Trey Benson has better days coming. So does Chuba Hubbard. So does Jacoby Myers, really, in my opinion. Let's see what's going on Sarah's bench there. Sarah, I mean, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt could definitely get going, but maybe time to try and trade for a game breaker while waiting for, early injuries have really hurt Sarah, I got to say. Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, and Aaron Jones. That's 3 major players all hurt. But you can fight through those injuries, still just sitting at 2-2, while Aaron's team 3-1. Looking like another powerhouse, I have to say, if you can get through this Lamar Jackson injury. All right, that's the wrap for the week. All of our games. Again, we ended in a wild Monday Night Football game with that 40-40 tie. The second highest tie in NFL league history, and of course, a scoregami. I mean, let's see if Monday Night Football fun keeps rolling. But I will say, ties are pretty dumb. How can the NFL fix ties? I think if it's still a tie after 10 minutes, every lineman should do the beep test, and the last one standing wins it for their team. Any other suggestions? All right, well, since we're going to get this one out early Tuesday evening, you do have time to get my waiver picks. Let's jump over to, the list of available players. We can look at Yahoo, I don't trust Yahoo at all, but their week 5 projected scores. A lot of players are going to need waiver help this week. It is the first week of buys. We've got 4 teams on bye. I forgot to write them down, so that means you're going to have to look to see if they're on bye yourself. But that's a bunch of players going to be missing. My top quarterback ad is not the number one on the list, Tua. It is going to be Jackson Dart, the rookie quarterback who's now taken the reins in New York. He's got some rushing upside, already rushed like 9 times, had a rushing touchdown. The best upside out of this, pretty thin quarterback waiver wire. Might be some competition on the wire if you want a quarterback. Let's move over to wide receivers. And you know what? My top 2 selections are going to be the top 2 players that Yahoo lists in terms of projecting points as well. Darius Slayton, now the de facto wide receiver 2 on the Giants after they lost Malik Neighbors. He can get some deep balls. He'll be pretty boom or bust, but definitely worth adding. And Malik Washington, pretty similar. Number 2 wide receiver now on Miami after Tyreek Hill's now out for the year. So those guys definitely worth adding. Darius Slayton, you can probably pop right into your starting lineup. Moving on to running back, and well, you can see nobody being projected for high points on Yahoo. Nobody getting above 5 points here. But there's one intriguing ad, let's say, and that would be Kendre Miller, who had a rushing touchdown last week. If you look at his stats, 12 points, 11 attempts for 65 yards and a rushing touchdown. He's the young guy who's been on the team for a couple of years now. He could start to push Alvin Kamara, especially if their team keeps losing and they want to see what they have in him. So Kendre Miller is my top added running back. And if you think Minnesota is going to have some trouble against Cleveland, then you could do worse than picking up and playing Xavier Scott, the backup running back on Minnesota, but he is their pass catcher. He got 8 targets last week, 6 receptions, and a touchdown. So you could do worse if you have to slot a running back in off the waiver wire. Let's move on to tight end. And, well, Darren Waller had to put his rap career on pause, come out of retirement, joined Miami, didn't play the first 3 weeks, but then week 4 comes in, catches 3 balls, 2 of them are touchdowns. Again, they lost Tyreek Hill, so you could do worse than throwing a dart at Darren Waller. But I will also throw out Tommy Tremble, who you don't even really see on this list. He's all the way down here. He had a great game last week because Jatavian Sanders was out. If Jatavian Sanders is out again, you can definitely play Tommy Tremble. That is the tight end. On Carolina, let's look at defenses very quickly. There's a lot of good defense options available this week. Going to go right ahead at the top with Cleveland, whose defense has ended up being fantastic. They're playing Minnesota and Carson Wentz again, so who knows what's going to happen there. We've got the New Orleans Saints playing the New York Giants and rookie quarterback Jackson Dart. Definitely worth a pick up and play against him. He'll probably turn the ball over. The Indianapolis Colts are another good ad against Vegas. Geno Smith keeps turning the ball over. You got Kansas City playing Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence has been terrible. So there's a bunch of good options if you need a defense. And, all right, let's go to kicker because why not? And, let's go with Matt Gay. He had 4 field goals last week, so why not him? And there you have it, our first true waiver wire rundown of the year. Hopefully that's helpful for some of you who need to get through buys, need to get through injuries. Hey, and why not send out a good trade offer as well? But that's it. Week 4 is over. Time for the real roster updates to begin. And, send out some trades. I'll see if I can send out some trade offers too. Keep on upgrading your team. Everything keeps upgrading. Hey, I'm upgrading my setup. Look at this. I got a full boom arm now. Don't even have my old platform mic. So keep moving up. Keep improving your team, improving your setup. Have a great week. See you all next week.